Maryland basketball gets another huge win.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at Inside Black and Gold, so make sure you guys head over to insideblackandgold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Maryland basketball gets another huge win for the Terps and put themselves in a really good spot overall. What a home win. Maryland looks like they're as hot as anybody in the country, but what a win against the USC Trojans, a team that we were favored against, a team that we should beat. But I always say a mark of a good team is winning games you're supposed to win. I think that's a really huge thing for good teams. Good teams beat the teams they're supposed to beat. That's what being a good team, that's what being a better team than your opponent means. It means you're supposed to win. And the good teams that stay top 25 in the country, that stay really high-end teams, they beat the teams that they should beat. And USC was a team that we got at home, a team that we absolutely should win. And they kind of end our easy streak of games, if you will. Obviously, it's the Big Ten. It's college basketball. It is really hard to win. I don't care what conference you're playing in. I don't care who you're playing. It is really tough to win, especially in the Big Ten, especially, of course, some of these other conferences as well. But obviously, we're highlighting the Big Ten. It is tough to win games, but Maryland does kind of end their easier stretch. If we're being completely honest, Maryland hit a pretty easy stretch of games, and I thought we did exactly what I wanted the Terps to do on this stretch. Of course, last night, another big win against USC, 71-88. Maryland's impressive, man. They're doing some impressive things. They're doing high-end things on both ends of the floor, but a 17-point win against USC is a big-time, big boy win for the Terps. Of course, we beat Iowa the game before by 26. We beat Nebraska. We beat Rutgers, and we took a loss to Ohio State. But in that skid, in that kind of streak where we were like, this is the streak where we could catch up and potentially move our way up to be a team that potentially wins the Big Ten, a team that competes to win the Big Ten, a team that puts themselves in position to get a first-round bye. Remember, the top 4 teams in the Big Ten get a first-round bye. We talked about this streak. We talked about how it was a tough streak before that where we had Illinois when they were ranked. We had Wisconsin. We had some good teams early on the season. We played Purdue. We had already played UCLA. We played some tough teams. But Maryland hit this streak where it wasn't a bunch of great Big Ten teams. And I thought we had the chance to go undefeated. We ended up losing one game, which I said out. If we lose one game in the streak, I'll be completely fine with that. Stuff's going to happen. And that's exactly what we did. I thought that was a perfect kind of position to be in. Obviously, you want to go undefeated, but between Ohio State, Rutgers, Nebraska, Iowa, and USC, Maryland dominates their kind of easier streak. And I want to dive into more of this game, but obviously now we hit a little bit of a harder game against Michigan State next week on a Wednesday, which might be one of the games of the years in the Big Ten. I know a lot of people are going to say Michigan State is the game of the year and the most exciting matchup, but Maryland, Michigan State, that's a battle right there. A Tom Izzo coach team that's been really good all year that I think has been better than their actual team is, and that's thanks to coaching. But it was really awesome to see Maryland grab another win against USC to get back to the Terps. For us to win by 17 points, it's domination right now for Maryland basketball. It's not like we're kind of tippy-toeing, like winning these games by 1 point, and it's like, oh, they're a good team. They're going to be in March and stuff, but they're not as good as their record says they are. That's not what the Maryland team is this year. We're blowing people out. We were 10-point favorites against USC. You end up beating them by 17. That means you're playing higher than what Vegas thinks you should be. I think the Vegas lines are always very accurate. And there was a similar thing against Iowa. We were 10.5-point favorites against Iowa. We end up winning by 26. Like, Maryland's doing some things that I didn't think going into the year that we would be able to do. And I talked about it before. I said Maryland's going to continue the momentum against USC. And that's exactly what has happened. The Terps have continued their momentum. They have continued to hit their stride. They've continued to get better, which I think is the most important thing. It feels like every single game we're getting better, and we're putting ourselves in position to peak at March. And that's exactly what you want as a Terps team, which I thought was which I think puts yourselves in a really good spot to win games. And then we also did really well on USC's one of their better players. I thought Maryland had a good game plan. I thought we played some of their better guys really well, and I really enjoyed the defensive effort as well. I know we gave up 71, but when you score 88 and you only give up 71, to me that's still a good defensive game. I thought we played Desmond Claude. I was blanking on his name for a second. I think who's their best player, transfer from Xavier, has been good for them all year. Nearly averages 16 and 4 at the guard spot. I thought we played him really well, and that was one of my keys going into the game. I said if you're able to limit him, I think you have a really good shot at not just winning this game by winning by a lot. And he only had 7 points. I said it. He can turn over the ball. We forced him into 3 turnovers, which I thought was something that was a really important part of the game. He only ended up playing 24 minutes and usually plays a lot more minutes than that. So I thought that was really good. And 2 of 6 from the field. I thought we played good defense on the USC team. And then I also thought that we did a good job not turning over the ball too much. Only 9 turnovers for the Terps. We'll take that every time. 9 turnovers isn't bad at all for a Maryland team. Where USC turned over the ball 10 times. It's not like USC turned over a ton too. So for you to beat a team that didn't turn over the ball a ton, shot the ball decently, shot the ball 75% from the free throw line, 31% from 3 from USC isn't great, but we're watching Maryland basketball really light it up in terms of shooting the ball. 85% from the free throw line, 40% from the 3-point line, 50% nearly from the field. So really good overall performance in that state. And it's really awesome to see the momentum continuing to go for Maryland basketball. And last year, after a tough football season was a lot better last year, but at the end of the day, we're a basketball school. We want to win basketball games. We know we're not amongst elite in terms of football, but it is really awesome to see us have a rebound year from last year's basketball season, where I think a lot of people, I said it before the year, I want to touch on this quickly, because I thought Kevin Willard did an awesome job last night, and he's done an awesome job all season. A lot of people were quick to write off Kevin Willard. I didn't necessarily get it. I didn't understand it. I said, why are we so quick to want to get rid of Willard? He made the tournament in year 1. He had bad 1 year. And last year, yeah, obviously you're going to put a lot of blame on him. But I just thought the roster wasn't that good. And he obviously has a big hand in constructing the roster. But I just think it ended up being a roster that a lot of people thought were going to be good. But I just don't think we had the guys to be able to compete. I don't think many coaches could have done much with that Maryland roster last year. And give credit to Kevin Willard, because he completely reestablished this thing. He went out and got one of the best freshmen in the country, might make him a top 10 lottery type of pick this year. He got Julian Reese to stay, who's one of the better bigs in the country. And then he also got 3 transfer guards that are all playing at a really solid level. So we have to give credit to Kevin Willard for the roster construction, but also what he's doing in games. He's, I think, coaching at a really high level. I think he's coaching at one of the higher levels in the Big Ten currently right now with what he's doing. I think Tom Izzo right now is probably the best, but the Michigan coach, I think, doing a really good job. But I think Kevin Willard has done as good of a job as just about anybody so far in the Big Ten, which I think is really big for the Terps. And I think he's put ourselves in position to be a really solid seed in March Madness. And I said it. A lot of people call me crazy. I said we potentially could be a 4 or 5 seed in the tournament. A lot of people are like, nah, I think the Terps are a 7, 8 at best, a 6. We're heading towards that direction where we could be potentially a 4, maybe a 5, maybe a I'm not going to say a 3, depending on how Maryland finishes the stretch and goes into the Big Ten tournament, but I think we're putting ourselves in a good position. And I just want to remember, we all were so quick to write off Kevin Bullard and say he's got to go. But I feel like I stayed sturdy and said, no, one bad year. A ton of coaches have bad years. Look at Bill Self at Kansas right now, a really good basketball coach. It's going to be one of the better basketball coaches of all time. Kansas isn't having a great year. They can't seem to figure things out. They're still probably a tournament team, but their seeding probably drops every single day. And a lot of people thought they were the best team in the country. A lot of people thought they were going to be the number 1 team in national championship favorites and things like that. And so to me, I think the Terps have really figured it out. I think we put ourselves in a really good spot. And in the Big Ten right now, when I look up the standings, it's a little bit confusing. Right now, it says we're a top 4 team, but I don't know exactly what the tiebreaker is because I thought Purdue would have the tiebreaker over us because they beat us. But it has us above Purdue with the same conference record. So I'm a little bit confused about that. I have to check in on that. But we're battling for a top 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament. We want that double bye, and we're going to have the opportunity to do that. And you get Michigan State on Wednesday, which I think is going to be a huge matchup. But let's dive into some of the more stats of the game. Who played well? Who didn't play well? What do I think we need to improve? What was so impressive? We'll talk about that next. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because with FanDuel, you can play slide bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine live bets into the same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting features because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking up a player to hit a clutch free 3, I never feel like I missed any chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So Maryland basketball obviously had a very impressive performance, but I want to get into some of the individual guys that I thought played really well. And I want to talk about this Crab 5 thing. I think it's interesting because I went on here and said I thought Maryland had maybe the best starting 5 in college basketball. Like legitimately, it might just be the best starting 5. I'm not gonna say it's the best. I know Auburn has a really good one. I know Duke's really good. I know some of these other teams are really good, but I think Maryland has the top starting 5 in the country. And people are calling it the Crab 5, I guess. I guess goes with the Maryland theme with the crabs and that type of thing. It's a little bit weird. It's hard a little bit for me to catch on to that, but the Crab 5, I'm with it. It's interesting and everything. And I do think that Maryland's Crab 5 or whatever you want to call it is kind of a thing right now. And when you look at the stats again from this game, man, everybody in the starting 5 is contributing at such a high level and really giving us a really awesome opportunities to win game. Again, everybody in our starting 5 was in double digits, which I thought was really impressive. Three of them had over 19 points, which is really big time. The level that these guys are playing at is honestly just I couldn't even imagine before the season telling you that these guys are playing at this high of a level, but they are. They're playing at a level that I just didn't think possible. I'm going to start with Julian Reese, our senior. 19 points for him, 2 blocks, 10 rebounds, 8 of 14 from the field, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. Julian Reese is having an awesome year. I think Julian Reese might be having his best year yet. I think it's just the team is so balanced and the best team we've seen a while for Maryland basketball that he might not be recognized in terms of having one of his best years. I think maybe his best year. He did have another really good year 2 years ago, but I do think this is one of Julian Reese's best year, and you could argue his best year yet. The way he's playing on a consistent basis is really some awesome stuff. So to see the way he's playing at a high level and see what he's doing is really impressive. Another double-double for Julian Reese. And then seeing him shoot well from the free throw line has just been maybe my favorite thing. We know he struggled with that in the past, and now for him to make that weakness somewhat of I don't want to say strength, but he's doing it definitely at a high level and definitely above where I thought he would be. He's shooting in the 70%, which I think is great for him from the free throw line, but for him to go 3 for 3 from the free throw line, he's cashing on those opportunities. He gets fouled a lot down low. I think is so important for Reese, and then also 4 offensive rebounds for him. And Derek Queen, the most important part or the most impressive part of his game might have been the 17 rebounds. 17 rebounds for Derek Queen. 13 points, didn't go crazy scoring the ball, but 13 points is still really good, and he was pretty efficient doing it. 5 and 9 from the field, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. He did a really good job with that and had 3 assists and a block. I still want him to cut down the turnovers. He had 3, but another just solid performance from Derek Queen. And then these two guards, man, Gillespie and Rice, the way they're playing, the level that they're playing at is just really high level stuff. Really impressive from the two Terps guards. I think they're playing as a guard duo. They're playing as good as anybody in the Big Ten as well. I thought Julian Reese and Derek Queen before the season, I said they might be the best front court in college basketball, but I said our backcourt I think is a lot better than people think, but I don't think it's one of the best in college basketball. But Gillespie and Rodney Rice are trying to prove they're one of the best backcourts in the Big Ten. And Gillespie had a really awesome game, 20 points, 5 3-pointers. I think the first 3-pointer of the game, if I remember correctly, was that one that was deep, really deep for Gillespie. 5 made threes is really impressive stuff. Also had 4 assists, 2, which is really good, but a really good game from Jacoby Gillespie, and he's proving to be one of the better guards in the Big Ten, which I think is absolutely fair. I think he's one of the best guards in the Big Ten, and I think he's playing like one of the better guards in the Big Ten. And his counterpart, Ronnie Rice, he's the best pure scorer on our team. He just gets a 20 effortlessly, 22 points, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, 2 of 6 from the 3-point line, 6 of 12 from the field, just effortless type of game from Rodney Rice. He's really, I think, what's taken this team to another level. I think before the season, people weren't as high on Rodney Rice as I was, and as kind of what a lot of people thought. When he wasn't starting to start the season, I said, no, this isn't going to be able to work. Rodney Rice has to be the starter. He has to be the one starting. I was like, this isn't going to work. And he's proven himself to be that guy that I thought before the season, I thought our starting 5 was decent. I thought it was good. But when he entered it, it just took off to another level. And the way he's scoring the ball, the way he's playing, it's just really impressive from Rodney Rice. And we haven't seen a guy play at that high of a level so far this year. And then Selton Miguel didn't have his best game in terms of shooting the 3 ball, but did some other things well, had 3 assists, 4 rebounds, had a steal too. I do want him to cut back on turnovers as well, 3 turnovers. Back to Rodney Rice. Rodney Rice also had 0 turnovers, which I thought was big. So I really thought the Crab 5, as a lot of people thought to call it, I thought played at a really high level. They combined for basically every single one of our points besides 3 of them. And the way they're playing right now gives us every opportunity to make a run in March. It does. They're the reason we're 21-6. They're the reason we're 11-5 in conference play. Obviously, it's more than just them, but they're the biggest reason right now. And credit to Kevin Willard again for constructing a starting 5 like this, arguably the best starting 5 maybe in the country. Like, you could argue it. I think you have an argument. They average the most points out of any starting 5 in the country. Like, you have an argument to be made, and I just think it's really impressive. And it's really exciting to have a basketball team that's really good as you're getting to March. I think that's really exciting stuff from the Terps, and I really like where we are at right now. But there is one thing that could eventually hold us back, the bench. We'll talk about that next. Maryland's bench, it's not great. We're not getting any production from the bench, and if something holds us back later on, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the bench. He just isn't doing anything. There's no scoring. There's not a lot of production. There's some defense going on. There's just not anything really. I'm focusing on the offense side of the ball. I think guys are good on the defense side of the ball off the bench. But then the day, you might need somebody to come off the bench and score, somebody to come off the bench and do some things. But right now, Maryland doesn't have that. And we may have the best starting five in the country. It's possible. But the depth, man, it's scary right now because it's just not there. And you want it to be there and you want it to be better, but we just don't have a bunch of confident players coming off the bench that are going to score the ball, that are going to do that. That's just not their games. And I think that's where my biggest concern lies with this team. I think I see teams like Auburn, and I see teams even like Michigan State and Wisconsin, like teams in the Big Ten, Purdue. They have guys that can come off the bench and get them 10 points or make 3 threes or are really still really talented offensive players. Where I look at Maryland guys coming off the bench, and I kind of just am like, I don't really have I don't really feel good about anybody coming on and doing much. I just don't. And I hope it gets better and I hope it improves. But our starters are all playing above 33 minutes. Like every starter was above 33 minutes last night, which is a lot of minutes to be played. They're playing a lot of minutes. And as we go on, you hope that our guys don't worn down a little bit, but it's tough for me when I just think our starting lineup, there's so much pressure on them. And every single game I've been like, the crab five, as you guys want to call it, does it again. They score 85 points on their own, and the bench puts 3 points on the board to get it to 88. Feels like every single game I'm kind of going and saying that. And eventually 3 or 4 of them might not play well in the game, and you might need somebody to come off the bench and make a couple shots. And I don't feel like Maryland has the ability to do that right now, and that's a scary part of the Terps. And I think to make a deep tournament run, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, your starting five has to be balanced, has to be really good. But a lot of people might count Maryland out because they don't feel like they have depth. Like the analysts that really know ball might say, yeah, I really like the Maryland team. It'd be really nice if they had 1 or 2 more guys off the bench that could do a little something. Because right now, just none of them are really doing much. One thing that hurts is Gapari. I don't know what the deal is with him. I guess we're trying to ease him back in from his illness. He didn't play a lot last night, but I think when he plays, he's been really good at times this year, and he's an athletic freak. And what he can bring from the 4, he can bring some stretch ability from that 4 spot and space the floor and some athleticism. And he's had games where he's had like 10, 11 points and has been really good. But he, of course, is working back from the sickness. And Jordan Geronimo, I thought, has been pretty good in his spot. I still don't know exactly how they'll play those two later on the season, just because they kind of come in and play a similar type of role in terms of really good athletes that can block shots, and give Derek Queen and Julian Reese a little bit of a breather. I don't know if they'll both play. I don't know exactly. Geronimo also had that really cool steal last night to lead to a fast break dunk. To see kind of his long, lanky self be able to get to the rim, that was pretty impressive. So I'm looking at that as something that I'm really looking at. And then just from the guard spot, I thought Jay Young had a stretch where he was playing really solid ball, but it kind of feels like he slowed down a little bit, hasn't really gotten many shots. He was shooting the 3 ball pretty well at a time, but now it's like it just hasn't done a ton in terms of bench production. We haven't gotten a ton out of Jay Young, but I really thought he was going to be the guy to be able to give us some offense potentially off the bench. And then Deshaun Harris-Smith, he's just struggling offensively. 0 of 1 from the field. He's not taking a ton of shots. He doesn't really look to take a ton of shots. which is tough for him. But he's just struggling a little bit offensively. And so it's tough because we thought maybe he could be a guy off the bench. So there's just not a ton of production, and you wonder where it's going to come from. But it's something that we definitely want to improve. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.